What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Grady and I listen to country music and whatever else I want to. And first things first, I hope the, general quality of the video seems improved. I've been working hard on learning my camera settings, and learning my audio settings, and learning lighting, and I think it looks better. You can let me know in the comments if it does. Today is going to be an album roundup. That's when I talk about a bunch of albums that I've listened to in the last couple months. And I shoot these because I generally haven't had time to do full dedicated videos for most albums. I hope to do more solo reviews now that I'm doing YouTube and my podcast full time, much like I just did with the Tyler Childers review. And yes, I've heard you all loud and clear on Tyler Childers. I know it's a camper now. I know the Country Squire is a camper. We'll get to that later. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a bunch of albums though that I've listened to in June and July and let you know briefly what I think about them, give them a score, and there will be timestamps in the description if you want to hop around to one of the reviews specifically. And I'm just going to go in chronological order of the order that these albums came out. And if you're wondering where is Luke Combs the prequel, that is in the last album roundup because it came out like the day before I was going to film, so I just threw it into that one. Before we get into it, let's say a shout out to our sponsor. You know who it is. It's Ridge Wallet. Ridge was our first sponsor here on the channel. And by our, I mean my first sponsor here on the channel. And they make these minimalist wallets. They're just about the size of your credit card. You can fit a bunch of cards in there. They have a money clip on the back. And what these are good for, I've found, is really going out. Sometimes when I'm going out and you want to look all sleek, it's nice to just have something small instead of something bulking up your pockets. And this sits right in the front pocket and it just looks very, very sleek. You can keep your cards in here and not carry around a lot of clutter. That's what I'm trying to say. You can get 10% off your first order going to ridgewallet.com/Grady or use the promo code Grady for 10% off. Thanks, guys. Okay, the first album I want to talk about is Riley Green's Get That Man a Beer EP. This is just an EP, so I don't want to spend a crazy amount of time on it. It's just 4 songs, and Riley Green has actually already put out new music since then, but this EP, I think, much like all the music from Riley Green that I've heard, is really good. It's really solid. I don't know that I am really getting to know Riley Green just yet as this incisive, specific songwriter. His songs lyrically are kind of treading in very safe territory, very safe subject matter. There's one song on this EP that I think lyrically is really interesting. It's called Numbers on the Cars, and it's kind of exploring Alzheimer's and someone losing their memory, and then also how the numbers on the cars bring him back a little bit. And I'm assuming it's about his grandfather, given that he has a new song out called I Wish Grandpa's Never Died. But musically, that one's actually my least favorite on the EP. But I really can't complain about the music on this EP. I think Riley Green is one of the forerunners in this neo-traditional sound, and it sounds really, really excellent. In Love by Now is the single that is no longer a single because they're pushing I Wish Grandpa's Never Died, which is so cool to see a label actually be nimble and respond to fan passion. I love seeing that, even though I love how In Love by Now sounds. I love all the steel in it. I love the robustness of the arrangement. It feels breezy and open and cool. I think it's a really good hook. That has been my summer song. And so I really like this EP. At the same time, I want to feel a little more from the lyrics. Because even the very next song after In Love by Now is called Bettin' Man, and it's basically kind of the exact same song, which is I bet this girl has moved on. But it's just an EP, it's just a taste, it's just a flavor, and musically, I'm really into what Riley is doing. So I'm going to give this maybe a 6 out of 10. Next up, we had Aaron Watson's Red Bandana. Like busting Bronx, I've hung on for dear life. Now, Red Bandana is an album that I've actually talked about before. I did a video on Aaron Watson and Cody Wetzel and kind of them against the Nashville Machine. If you're interested in more on that subject, you can look on my channel for it. But Red Bandana is an album that I really, really like, and I have kept growing in my affection for it since my first listen. I think it's too long. It's 20 tracks, and it's very kind of unwieldy. And yeah, there's too many subjects that are covered on this album. That said, I think there are some consistent themes on this album, and the main one is that Aaron Watson is a trier. And not only is that clear just in how ambitious this album is and all these songs that he's written for it and some of the bold statements that he's making, there's also literally songs here about trying. There's a song called Live or Die Trying. There's another one called Trying Like the Devil. And I think we're supposed to kind of pick up on a sense that Aaron Watson is pushing. We all got troubles. We all got pain. And where is he pushing? Well, he's pushing to become like a sort of legendary, I think, Texas singer and make a life that matters and make a career that matters. He starts off pretty provocative on this album with a song called The Ghost of Guy Clark, which is one of the best protest songs I've ever heard about the state of country, because it's in a very poetic and almost motivating way, objecting to the lack of substance in a lot of modern music. It's not just bashing the music, it's more... as it's bashing the music, it's also saying he wants to make something from his soul. You know, he's had a little bit of success. He had Out of Style kind of become a mainstream hit, not just something in the Texas scene. And I think he's emboldened by that, and you're feeling a lot of his confidence and passion on this album, on songs like those Trying songs I mentioned, even on Dark Horse, which can be a little bit cheesy. And Aaron Watson is often one shade cheesy. He is pushing, and he's saying, I got a chip on my shoulder, and in some ways, I want to make bigger things, and I want to do it my own way. And it's inspiring, honestly. There's a lot of really beautiful songs on this. M.I. Amarillo is kind of a gorgeous Texas song that's supposed to, I think, be a little bit of a bone thrown to Amarillo by Morning. There's another song in here called Heartstrings that's totally gorgeous. There's another one in here called Country Radio that's totally gorgeous. To Be the Moon is beautiful. There's a tribute to the victims at the Las Vegas shooting 2 years ago at Route 91. It's called 58. It's 58 seconds long for the 58 people that were slain there, and that's really lovely. And Aaron Watson also on this album is making some interesting claims about like race on a song called Blood Brothers, where he's sort of striving for unity. I mean, I hope you're understanding as I explain all these different kinds of songs. It's a little unwieldy. It's a little crazy, all the different things that he's saying at once. And there's kind of your sex jam songs that he does on like Burn 'Em Down and Shake a Heartache and You on My Hands. But I just like it. He is trying like the devil. He is going to live or die trying, and I think that's present on this record. Instrumentally, it's really beautiful. I think there's a lot of gorgeous swells in a song like Country Radio. His voice is really excellent. I think he kind of almost talk sings with that gravel in his voice that sounds really, really good. And I think some people get mad at like, oh, Dark Horse is too poppy for them. But I mean, come on. This is not like it is... Aaron Watson's not the enemy here. I think he's so popular that some Texas people kind of shoo him to the side a little bit and act like, oh, he went on the Bobby Bones show, so now he has nothing good to say. But this is a really, really well-crafted album. Lots of steel, lots of fiddle, none of the annoying kind of drum loops. I just think that he is making an excellent product. It's just a little unfocused, but it's so likable. It's so likable, and he's so likable. And so I've really come back to this album quite a few times. It puts me in a good mood, and it makes me want to be better. So I'm going to give this a solid 7.8, but it's ever on the rise. Next up, I want to talk about Cody Wetzel's Harold Saul High. Now, Cody Wetzel was recommended to me over and over and over and over and over again in the comments, and I know he's this kind of king of this Texas frat scene out there, and all of these young guys are constant, like the sad boys of the subreddit or of like my YouTube comments are always like, you gotta check out Cody Wetzel, and so I did. My first thought was, this is not country, this is like a grunge 90s Nirvana-ish, almost Weezer-ish. It reminds me of Guitar Hero, honestly, his sound. That's okay. It's just interesting to me that he's in the country conversation, because in no way is this a country record. But, and maybe his old ones are. I've just heard this one. But that was my first thought. My second thought was, I hope this guy's okay, because this is some dark subject matter. This is a great album if you have been broken up with and you can't stop ripping bong hits and sitting and feeling horrible about yourself about a girl that left you behind. I mean, that's the kind of album that this is. is hard on himself and down on himself and kind of has this unprocessed rage, which is very exciting. You know, for an album with as dark of subject matter, you might expect it to sound more heavy and solemn, but actually I think a lot of these songs are quite fun to listen to. I think Forever is a really hooky, like fun power chord kind of rock song. I think the same thing about Powerball, which has my favorite kind of vocal moment where he's like, I wouldn't be lonely tonight. It sounds cooler than that. But that kind of half step of late at night is so appealing to listen to. The best song on the record is definitely Ragweed. I think it's now getting pushed as a single. And it is a song of affection for this girl who he says she misses Ragweed like I do. And I like that hook. I like that it is not saying, and I love her because she understands me. But that's implicit in the statement, she misses Ragweed like I do. So I really enjoy that song, and I think it sounds good. Now, there's a few songs on here where I wish there was a lot less production. There's one called Too High to Cry that's gorgeous, and I just wish we got more intimacy in the chorus because the verses are so low and they're so good, but then we get this layered vocal on the chorus, and to me it takes away some of the meaning. I also think the album can be a bit one note. It's like, you know, if Aaron Watson's was way all over the place, I think this one can be a little too, like, I hate myself and she hates me and she left me. And that just makes it less good. I also think maybe I'm a little too old for this album at the ripe old age of 30. I think maybe I'm aging out of this phase where this kind of recklessness is as fun to listen to. But, you know, I get it. I was glad to listen to it because I get why people are into it. And it sounds like his shows are a rowdy, rowdy time. So maybe it's sad boys or maybe it's mad boys. And or maybe there's some girls that are watching this channel that like him too. But it's mostly bros that have been hitting me up to listen to Co. I would give this album maybe like a 5.8. And it's not bad. It's not country. And it's very interesting. Then we've got Runaway June's Blue Roses. I really liked this album, and I'm really glad that I liked this album because I've been kind of following Runaway June for a while. I really liked their song Lipstick when I first heard it. That was, I think, the first moment I remember hearing about Runaway June, and I thought it was a smart hook. Find a man that ruins your lipstick, not your mascara. I was like, oh, they have an ear for a witty line. Then they had a song called Wild West that I thought was good. And then Buy My Own Drinks, while it's not my favorite song, it's a little too juvenile sounding. I like the sass in it, and I definitely like their harmonic moments, and I generally like their kind of acoustic poppy production. It's definitely reminiscent of the Dixie Chicks, and I'm not just saying that because it's 3 women in this trio, and there were 3 women in the Dixie Chicks. There is a kind of nice melding of the traditional instrumentation of country music and poppy production and nice harmonies between the 3 of them that is reminiscent of someone like the Dixie Chicks, or if you liked Maddie and Tay's debut album Start Here, you'd probably like Blue Roses as well. There's a few songs on this album that are absolutely excellent. I think I Am Too is a really great pop country hook, and I think that We Were Rich is a standout moment on country albums this year. We Were Rich uses all these little images, stuff like Reynolds Wrap on a TV antenna or a paisley tie at church, to sort of paint a really clear picture of these girls' childhood and to say that, you know, growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, but we thought we were rich. And I love that line. I feel like everyone, no matter how you grew up, can kind of relate to that feeling of naivete, if that's how you say that word. I think it's naivete. We're just going to go with it. Pretend I'm sophisticated. I think anyone can relate to that feeling of just sort of innocence that the song really captures in their misunderstanding as kids of their social standing. The album Closer, Blue Roses, is lovely and languid and sad and a really, really stunning track. I would say that I wish more of the album were like that, actually. To me, sometimes it just gets a little bit silly, a little over-caffeinated, and I don't love all of the tracks on here and think sometimes they just feel a little too dressed up. But on the whole, I think this is a really, really solid debut that I think they know who they are. I think it establishes them well. It's spunky and bouncy and a pretty fun record. I hope We Were Rich becomes a single at some point. It seems like they're going to push head over heels, and that would be an example of kind of, I don't know, the sillier side of this record that I don't love as much, but I think they made a really good album here. So I'm going to give it a 7.2. Now let's talk about Justin Moore's Late Nights and Long Necks.
'Cause we're a little messed up, but it's cheaper than a dang old train.
Justin Moore is someone that I kind of put into the same category as Randy Houser. He was someone that I sort of wrote off during the bro country era, and I wasn't a fan of his music. And I was also like much more rageful against pop country at that moment of my life than maybe I am now. But much like Randy Houser coming back with Magnolia, a phenomenal album he released earlier this year, Justin Moore has come back with a really, really solid, good album in Late Nights and Long Necks. It's well named because this is an album that is a lot about drinking. It is just a lot about drinking. And I'm not saying like these are party songs that implies they're about drinking. They're literally about the alcohol. They're called like Why We Drink, On the Rocks, Jesus and Jack Daniels, Someday I Gotta Quit. I mean, these are very explicitly just drinking songs. And it can feel, I mean, definitely the biggest issue of the album is it just feels a little shallow. It's like there's other subjects. There's other subjects to sing about. And they are covered here, you know. He has a song called That's My Boy about being a father and looking admiringly at his son. He has another song on here called The Ones That Didn't Make It Back Home about veterans or about the troops being away and serving. And it's a tribute song to the ones that didn't make it back home.
Here's to the ones that didn't make it back home.
But a lot of it is about drinking songs, and I'm like, dude, you need a counselor. You got to process some of these emotions. But, here's the silver lining to it being a lot about drinking songs. They're all really, really well written. They're all interesting concepts. Airport Bar, it's a good song. It's kind of like Drunk on a Plane if you never got on the plane. Then there's another song on here called Why We Drink that's super funny and witty. And I love the line, it's alcohol abuse if we pour one down the sink. It's just making lots of excuses to drink in that song. I think that the number of writers on this record is interesting to me because almost every track has 4 writers. That's a lot of writers. But represented on the whole album are only 7 writers. And one of the writers is Paul DiGiovanni. He's someone that was a guitarist in Boys Like Girls. And he's been making inroads in Nashville lately, especially through like with Dan and Shay. And anyway, I just thought it was interesting that he's one of the writers on this album. It was a fun surprise when I looked at the credits. So it's a pretty consistent base of people that are actually writing all these songs. And I think it's almost like they assumed a challenge to write as many different angles around like how do we write a drinking song as we can. And I think they did a pretty good job. I mean, how no one has thought of the idea to say, I need something on the rocks because my relationship is on the rocks before, I don't know. But kudos to them for doing it because that is a really good lyric. Like I said, though, it's too much on that one subject. There are other shades of life. There is, romance, and there is friendship, and there is hurt, and there's other things than just drinking. And I know that drinking kind of can interface with some of those things, but I'd like to see him process more emotion than just kind of this low-level stuff. And I gotta say that the production and instrumentation on this album is top-notch. Super steel heavy. That's awesome. Lots of fun kind of like guitar licks on this album that are really like just great to listen to. And you get fiddle all through here, especially, and I'm saving my favorite part of this album for last, on the last song, Good Times Don't. That song just breathes. It just breathes with the fiddle and with the very light drumming and with the kind of it's a checklist song, but it's a gorgeous checklist song. I mean, yeah, we're name dropping Hank and we're name dropping Friday nights and sitting on tailgates and all that stuff, but it's just a really well done version of that generic checklist song. There's one song on here I hate called Small Town Street Cred. I don't like cred songs. I don't think they're not in the spirit of music. I'm someone that is not country, as we all know, and loves country, and it's just kind of like, it doesn't feel very, like it's meant to service all fans, I guess, but then maybe that's how he feels. I'm so open. Maybe that's how he feels, so maybe I do like it. No, I don't like cred songs. I never have. Overall, I think I'm going to give it a 6.8. I'm going to dock it kind of significantly because I want to hear other subject matters. But Justin's voice sounds top-notch. The instruments sound top-notch. The guy can sing. They have some good writing. Let's just take it up one notch. Then we got Casey Donahew's One Light Town.
Maybe I'm just a bad guy. I don't know why, but you'll curse the day we met.
I'll be honest, I've only listened to this album twice all the way through. So this will be a short part of the review because I don't feel that equipped to talk too much about him. But I really think this is a solid album. It's, again, much like Aaron Watson's, I think bloated. I think there's a way better album here that cuts 3 or 4 of the songs out of it. Because there are moments of this album that truly sing. There's a song called Bad Guy about his shame and how he's just this feeling that he is a bad guy. The title track, One Light Town, is a stunner. There's another one on here called Still Ain't Made It Home that is about a soldier who is suffering from PTSD, and even though he's back, he hasn't really come back all the way home, and it's really sad. So there's great moments on this record, but then there's kind of just like the dumber side of Texas country that I don't love. Stuff like We Ain't the Sun, stuff like another Cred song. What's it called? He ain't a cowboy. And I don't like those ones. To me, they're really dumb. They're beneath this record. I also think it's definitely overproduced. There are times where you're just like, there's too much happening. Chill out. Let the song breathe. But on the whole, I think it's a pretty solid record. After a few cursory listens, I'll give it a 7. Next up is Tyler Childers' Country Squire. Now, I already have a full video on this review, so go check that out if you're interested. I will say, I got it wrong. The Country Squire is a camper, and it is metaphorically a palace. I made a big mistake on that. I kind of got really mad at myself and had a whole existential crisis that maybe I'm bad at this whole reviewing thing. But I just got it wrong. I just missed the lyric. I thought, oh, he's trying to build this castle out in Kentucky, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. I suddenly only heard lyrics about 2x4s and rafters and just missed all the obvious stuff about the camper. But on the whole, I stand by everything else I said in that review, and I think I got the metaphor right, that he is trying to kind of mature and get to the next level in his career. So a lot of stuff on that. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Go check out that video. And then finally, I want to talk about an album that blew me away. I've only heard it for the last 4 days, so I'm a new fan, but it's Mike and the Moonpies. It's called Cheap Silver and Solid Country Gold.
But you look good to me. You gave me your last cigarette.
This album feels, the first words that came to mind for me were, it just feels expensive. It is so cool and different. It is taking kind of the, I tweeted, I think, the very first time I heard it, that it makes me feel like I have a martini in one hand and like a glass of whiskey in the other, because you got this sort of posh, sophisticated sound, and you've got that kind of red dirt sound as well. It's like a James Bond Goes to Arizona soundtrack, and I just think it's an exemplary sounding album. A bunch of you guys have loved Mike and the Moonpies for a long time. I'm a new fan. I was unfamiliar with Mike's voice. It's hard to describe. I actually asked for help in describing it on Twitter. Some of you use terms like buttery and jazzy. There's a lot of vibrato in his voice. It's almost a bit of a yodel, and I think it's really well captured on this and fits really well both with the symphonic strings and with the kind of dirtier tones of Red Dirt. So this band is from Texas, but they recorded this album in London, and you really feel the fusion of this album. I didn't know that narrative even going into the record, and I felt it through the music. So if you're someone that likes a little bit more of that sophisticated style of country music, if you're someone that likes maybe Lee Nash with The State I'm In, or Zephaniah O'Hara, or Joshua Headley from last year, Andrew Combs, you might really like this record. It has a lovely, lovely sound to it. But lyrically, there's a lot that this album offers as well. There's songs like Danger, which is a kind of almost a letter written to his son, giving him advice for the world. There is a song I absolutely adore called If You Want a Fool Around, and you can already hear the double entendre there. He's taking the self-deprecating stance where he's saying, if you want to keep this fool in your life, that would be great. But also, if you want to hanky-panky with me, that would be great. So I really enjoy that song. Probably my favorite overall song, sonically and lyrically, is You Look Good in Neon. That is a stunner. His voice is primo on it. The sound of it is so, it's just a vibe. What a cop-out of a thing to say in a review. But it feels kind of dark and woozy and romantic all at the same time. I think this album is solid country gold. It is a really great fusion of that symphonic sound with the country sound. I just loved it. I just love it. Thank you to Zach Wilkerson on Twitter for kind of shaming me into listening to it. I appreciate it, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. So that's it for this video, you guys. I know that there's a lot of 6s and 7s in this crowd, and the reality is there weren't any bad albums that I heard in this period. At Entertainment Weekly, we were kind of encouraged to not just give a B and a B and a B and a B every time we graded an album, because it wouldn't be interesting to read the music section if it's all just B after B after B. But that's a little bit how I was feeling in listening to the albums. I was just like, this is a B or a B plus album. This is a B or a B plus album. And except for Mike and the Moonpies. But that one was a real stunning standout. But I think that this is it was a good 2 months. Like I said, I hope to do more solo reviews coming up down the line. And we got some big heavy hitters coming this fall between Midland and John Party and Riley Green and Luke Combs and Cody Jinks. You know, I'm not saying I'm necessarily definitely going to be able to do a solo video for all of them, but I hope to. If you're someone that wants to hear more me talking about music in real time, I'd encourage you to check out the podcast, because I really get to talk more about the music of the week there, and just kind of you get my first impression of it. So check out Free Country with Grady Smith. That's the name of the podcast. And you can find it on anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as my website, gradywsmith.com. It posts every Monday, and I'd love to have you over there. Otherwise, I'll be back with more stuff coming up soon. Let me know what you think of the production. Let me know what your favorite albums are. And yeah, guys, thanks for loving country music along with me. Bye.